Hey there, YouTube. Welcome on back to Artichoke Dip. My name is Rob. If you don't know by now, solo tabletop RPG player, board game player, and other game players. If they can play them solitaire, hell, I probably own them or I'm currently looking at to acquire them. Either way, welcome on in. And if you just found my channel, and don't forget to click the subscribe button. I don't upload very often. I'm hoping that will change here very soon, and I'm going to get into that. This video, I'm going to do a little bit and talk about a couple of game systems and some of the stuff that I'm currently, we'll say, re-engaging with, and the reason for that. So stick around if you're interested in hearing that and a lot more. So for those of you that have been subscribers of mine and been around for a while, you notice the channel went dark for a while. And I was doing a co-op video with a solo RPG guy. And shout out to Don out there. Hope you're doing well. And then that kind of went dark. And I've had my incidences before in the past, or long hours at work, stuff like that, or I've just had really no time constraints for it. So life gets in the way at times and sometimes takes away from what you enjoy to do, because YouTube isn't, I know there's a lot of YouTubers out there that's their job. That's what they do for a living and how they feed their families and they pay the bills. But for me, it's not. This is a hobby. So when I have the time restraints to be able to do it, when time permits, I should say, I get a chance to do it. But then something peculiar happened to me, and it's something I've dealt with my entire life. And it was just kind of something that was always in the background and it was just very unexplained. And I'm referring to, it was a medical issue I was dealing with. Nothing serious. Don't think I'm anything like that. But it made reading difficult. It messed with my eyes, and it just presented this whole entire plethora of different issues that I had to deal with. And then it really came to the forefront and really inhibited me to be able to sit down and enjoy to read, to really have reading comprehension, to be able to compose myself. And so I was able to find a great doctor, and knew what it was and was able to get to the root cause of it and get it squared away for me. And I feel way, way better. As a matter of fact, I'm in awe that I actually went this long and just never really noticed what it was prior to that. I've always had these just weird little episodic things that would occur. Always chalked them up as everybody has their nervous tics and stuff like that, and maybe mine was a little bit worse than others, but turned out that wasn't the case at all. So, which is a good thing, and it's good because I have re-engaged. I feel more of myself than I have in a very, very long time, and so much to where I'm confident. I am very confident to make videos again, and I'm re-engaging with gaming. And oh my god, I've been away so long from the game table. It's just been nuts. It's been crazy. Now work has been a little hectic too. We've been putting in some long hours recently, and but that's okay, because that means there's extra cash always to put a little bit towards gaming, right? Speaking of which, what I am looking forward to, and for those of you out there, you do know this, I love Free League Publishing. I love what they put out. The games that I do own of theirs, I have to say, are top quality notch games. They really do well from production standpoint, the construction of their books, the paper that they use, Everything about it is just great. It's great content, and I am looking forward to. I already pre-ordered my set of Dragon's Bane. So when Dragon's Bane finally arrives, I plan on to open that up, get familiar with it, and do a review of it. See, how does it work out solo? Is it, all in questions? So you look forward to that, and the 17th of this month, I believe, I should have it. Now, shipping is always an issue, and if you've realized, doesn't matter what part of this country you live in, I think you've noticed that recently shipping's been a little off. Normally, either it's hit and miss. Either you receive whatever you order on time, or it could be a couple of days late, and, there's a whole plethora of different things behind the scenes on that one and what's causing the issues, but who cares? As long as I get my game, that's what I'm concerned about. So, what have I been up to? Very, very good question. And so, when I had decided to get back into the saddle, we'll say, so to speak, baby steps at first. I said Artichoke, and the first thing I did is I sat down and I played a classic old school dungeon crawler. One of my favorites, and that's going to be the Wrath of Ashraland. Now, if you're not familiar with these sets, and you have not seen these around, you're a solo tabletop RPG player, I've talked about them a lot. They're well worth the money. They really are. You get a lot of great minis in them. You get great tiles. They give you scenarios to go through, but really, once you learn the game, you can do just randomized dungeon crawls and set them up on a whim, and it has a lot of replayability to it. It's pretty cut and dry, and one of those I've noticed with these, a lot of people enjoy the game, but what they don't realize is that's actually 4th edition is what it is. And recently, with, believe it or not, you could still pick up a lot of 4th edition stuff really cheap. It didn't go over too well. And it was one of them editions. I picked up the starter set and I went through it. At first, I was just like, not for me. And I stuck with 3rd edition, and that was until 5th edition came out, and I got the first print runs of the hardback covers of 5th edition. And I've had really mixed opinions on 5th edition, but more about that here in a minute. And one of the things I have to say, what I was struggling with that, as I was talking about earlier in the video, one of the issues I had going on was mood swings as well. So there was some that influence that I noticed is not there anymore, and it's given me more of a clear minded view of everything. That what a world. Even the vision's much clearer, which is nice. But back to the 4th edition thing. So that got me into looking into actual 4E. Now, 4E is not your traditional RPG, we're going to say. If you enjoy 5th and you enjoy that RPG sandboxy element of it, great. Or you enjoy 3rd and the D20 system, excellent. Or you like 2nd edition and you enjoy the THACO system, right on. Or you enjoy Advanced, the original, right on. Or Basic, hey, I can agree. 4th edition stands out onto itself, and there's a reason, in my opinion, as to why that is. And for a person like me, and what I mean by that is I'm miniature crazy. I have loads of miniatures. I mean, just massive amounts of them. Set these guys up and I do my RPGs. I have an elaborate map. I even 3D terrain, and when I do my solo RPGs, that's what I use. I like to have that 3-dimensional representation in front of me on the table. I can measure it, and when you play solitaire, it really helps, especially when you deal with spells, area of effects, and cover and stuff like that. Because when you play in a larger group, you have somebody explaining this all to you, and this is all taking place in your imagination. But when you play solitaire, it's easier to have a 3D representation in front of you, because now you can actually measure it and see, and your line of sight and everything else, and it's all represented in front of you, and it makes it more concise and smoother, in my opinion. And the thing I found about 4th edition is the fact that I think that's the one edition of D&D that really was put there more as a war game. And I say that because this edition has far more in common with this than it does your old school D&D, which was based around heavy RPG elements and your character development. Not to say that 4th isn't, but even when you look at the way that movement is represented in the rule book, they don't talk about feet. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the earlier versions of D&D, everything was written out in measurements. So if you had a ruler, you could have 8 inches of movement, 12 inches of movement, and that was written for chainmail, which is actually a miniature game, and it goes back to old wargaming movement that you will see if you were to play any type of old historical factual wargaming, where you're actually using a ruler for movement and everything's going to be broken down into inches. And that type of movement confused a lot of people, including myself, when I first got into RPG games. And then as you looked at the D20 system, everything moved towards feet. Everything became more clean and concise, and then we started seeing stuff like this, to where, hey, now we're all on the same page. We can look at a map. Everything's either broken up into a hexagon or a grid, and you can count it, and we all know what 30 feet is compared to 40 feet, compared to 50 feet, so on and so forth. Whereas 4th edition marked it into squares, and which was represented to look at something like this. Your character can move 5 squares, 7 squares, 8 squares, regardless. And they opened it up and gave you this plethora of a large amount of character classes. But what lost a lot of people, including me looking around it the first time, was the fact that you had all these different powers, your at-will powers, your daily powers, and so on and so forth, which for a lot of us RPG players, that's just a lot to handle. I mean, it's like, where are we going with this? Until you really break it down and you look at it through the lens of miniature skirmish type of RPG. So it's got a very heavy blanketed layer of miniatures, which for me, and a light coating of RPG, just to maintain that, brand name D&D. Now, since I have gotten my issue straightened out and I decided to sit down and start reading through everything, and I've been reading a lot more, and there's stuff that I've noticed that I have missed. Even going through this, I've had the player's handbook for a while, and reading through it a second time, I was like, oh, okay, I see. And even looking at the monster manual and everything, and I'm like, this is just such a great miniature game, because that's what it's designed around, miniatures. So I've been like, so a person like me that has a lot of miniature terrain, a lot of miniatures, and always looking for a cool miniature game, I think I found one in conjunction with this that would work very, very well. It's food for thought for those of you out there. Like I said, if you enjoy RPGs and you want that classic feel of RPG, of Dungeons and Dragons, and that's what you're accustomed to and you like, you're probably going to find that 4th edition is not going to really resonate with you that well. But if you do enjoy the more tactical side. You enjoy designing, picking the models out and then designing them to the way that you want and adding on those special attacks and or powers to the way you see fit to deploy them out on the battlefield and to see if, hey, does it pay off or doesn't it? Fourth edition is a very good edition for that. And I think, honestly, looking on it now, because when 4th edition was out, people just hated 4th edition. It just did not go over well. But that was the thing. And I've talked about this several times in other videos about 4th. And I have to say, looking at it through a different lens for what it is, would I consider D&D 4th edition to be a classic RPG? No. Would I consider it to be a very comprehensive miniature skirmish game that can be very, very in-depth and you could do a lot more rather than just a tile miniature system like this? Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's one of the things that I have been recently engaging in and reading more into and really going, okay, I've been looking at this through the wrong lens. And it's funny, sometimes game systems are like that, and especially the day and age we live in where we are so over inundated with commercials. And just, if you look at, and for those of you out there watching that remember life before the internet, where the only way you heard about a new game was if a friend of yours got a game and you're like, oh, hey, they're cool, what's that? Oh, I picked this up here, or I got this over here. Or you walked into your favorite hobby store and maybe somebody there made a suggestion. Or you would think in the day and age that we live in, it would be easier, and to a certain extent it is a lot easier, but the problem is we're inundated so much. And if you look at it with all the crowdfunding such as Kickstarter, and you got Amazon, and you got eBay, and you have all the other companies doing their own things, that there's so much out there so quickly dumped on us that you really don't have time to really fully digest everything and really form a reasonable opinion about it before something new is there to take its place. And that's just the way the market is today. So I have to say, looking at this game system through a different set of eyes, a different perspective, a different opinion, rather than what I know of a D&D, I have to say, for miniatures, man, it's pretty good. Now, I've yet to sit down and play a full-on out, stretched out campaign with it. I started to engage with it and read it. This is when my issues started to get really bad. I had made a Tiefling character, and then I had plans, and then just, that was it. I started to notice I started having some weird things happen, and then my attention moved on to other areas, other games, and then that's the way that I was dealing with things would go on a day-to-day basis. But now I can say, yeah, I think I'm going to try that out. I think I'm going to see what I can do with the 4th edition and building a very, the way I'm going to view this, and an example I'm going to use, is something on the lines of Rangers of Shadow Deep. If you're not familiar with Rangers of Shadow Deep, it's pretty cool. It's a miniature game. You create a character, and you have your character, then you have basically these other miniature counterparts that help you as part of your group, but they're more or less broke down into miniature stats, and you deploy them, and you are fighting against a storyline as it progresses. Each chapter just gets further and further into the story with different scenarios and different encounters. So in my mind, that's the way I want to take that, and I want to try to utilize that and see if it works. And it may or it may not. I have an idea it probably will work very well. Okay, so that was number one. The thing, since I will say I got back on my feet, that I have been looking into, researching, and really reading about. Two, Forbidden Lands. And I had recently picked up a book that was suggested to me. I can see it right up there. 1 minute. And that is the Book of Beasts for Forbidden Lands. And if you're not familiar with this one, this contains everything you need to know about solitaire play with Forbidden Lands. Now, the thing that really struck me and what I was interested in the book for was more encounters to add into the game, because one thing about Forbidden Lands with the base set is you are limited to what they give you. Now they have expansions like the Bitter Reach, where they throw a few more encounters at you, Raven's Purge, where you get a few more encounters thrown at you, but this is more of a comprehensive book. It gives you, it's like the equivalent of another monster manual, if you will, and it just gives you a whole lot more encounters to be able to incorporate into the game. Now, the solo rules, I looked over the solo rules, and I have come to enjoy Forbidden Lands after reading it and going through, and my way of playing it and looking at it is like, okay, it's a good system. The thing for me is it utilizes a deck of 52 playing cards, your standard deck, and how they utilize it is it's a decent system. And for people out there trying to learn a solitaire RPG, which learning the RPG can be a lot, and then trying to learn how to play it solo, I can see where this is going to be an excellent resource for them, because it's going to teach them about how to randomize events, randomize your tables and everything else to make the game actually flow, which is good. For me, I kind of just looked at that and I was like, okay, well, for me, what I have found for solitaire play always has the most, I have to say, universally, I'm going to say most useful, I'm going to say dice in your polyhedral set is right here. Blam, your percentage die. I enjoy to use percentage die for a lot of things, from instead of utilizing, and we've seen it with Mythic, where Mythic really brought it to the forefront, where you had this table and you cross-reference it to ask a question, roll your percentile die, go back to that, and it would answer yes, no question. It would help you with those things. But before even Mythic, that's what I would use percentile dice for, which is really break it down for me into a percent. Like, what is the percent of a yes, no question? What is that outcome? If it's a higher number, it's greater towards a yes. If it's a lower number, to a no. Even going into dungeon dives, if you're going through a dungeon and you're playing that by yourself and you don't have a game master there, and you're like, okay, I go down the corridor goes into a T, I decide to take a left, and then I come to a door. Is the door locked? Roll a percentile dice. Let's see. Well, it's a 0-2. No, so the door will be open. And for me, it's a very versatile way to RPG. It picks things up very quickly, doesn't slow you down, and you can enjoy the gameplay. And this is in my opinion, but this is my opinion. So if you enjoy Forbidden Lands and you're looking for a way to be able to solo that, and you want a resource for that, by all means, look into this book and pick this book up and put it into your collection, because it's going to have a lot of information in there to help you with that. But like I said, for me, it just, my interest in it was not so much the solo system that they built into it, but all the more encounters, which just opens up the Forbidden Lands and gives you a lot more resources to deal with. And I have to say, it was a breath of fresh air after going through this time in my life to where my eyes wouldn't even hold focus, and so I couldn't read, and I just was so frustrated. And one of my favorite things to do is read, because sometimes I will sit down and my gaming time, I will go all out and I will have a great gaming session. Other times I may not even roll a dice, but I just enjoy to sit and read the material. And I think we've all had that, where you found an RPG system, it looked really engaging, you picked it up, you sat down and read through it, and you were like, okay, that was a cool idea, but it's just not really for me. I think a lot of people out there have experienced that, and I'm no different. So for me, the reading aspect of it sometimes just as rewarding as actually sitting down and playing the game itself. And man, it feels good to be back to myself again, in the way, and just the who would have thought, this whole entire time, yeah, it was quite the ride. I'll say the least. So another resource that I find myself going to a lot with solo RPG, and that I enjoy, one thing I can tell you, if you do not have it in your arsenal, you may want to look into picking it up. Now, I know what you're going to think I'm going to say. I'm going to jump right to Scarlet Heroes. Well, believe it or not, I've kind of gotten away from Scarlet Heroes. I've found other things that work better for me, I guess you could say. As being a solitaire gamer, you find ways that you enjoy solitaire playing, you find different resources, you adapt them into there, then over time you find that your overall system changes, and you just keep tweaking it to the way that you enjoy to play your RPG games, and to make them more, we'll say, adaptable for solitaire play, and tweak them to the way you want to play it, because it's your game, it's your experience, it's what you want to do with that. And I've always stressed that since I made this channel. The beauty of solitaire RPG is you're not in a group. It's not a group experience. This experience is all about you. It's about you sitting down and creating a storyline. And I'd like to compare it more to a television series, right? Like The X-Files, where we look at the two main characters, Mulder and Scully, and every episode leads into a new mishap or adventure, or just keeps prolonging the mystery further down the road and deepening it. And as more plot lines open up and they converge on one another, you only get more immersed into them characters and the situations as to which you share that experience with. There is a system out there that I found works very well and works very good for that. That system being the Adventure Crafter. The Adventure Crafter is an excellent system unto itself, and it takes a little bit to get it under your belt, I'm going to say. The overall concept of it's not hard. They give you a lot of charts in the way that they demonstrate how they use it. And when I first went through, I used it that way to learn it, but then I adapted and made it the way I wanted to use it and incorporate it into my RPGs. The thing I enjoy the most about it is the fact that you choose themes. You can, and the theme will go off as a mystery theme. Is you're basically, we're going to say, this session you're getting ready to play, is it mystery? Is it action? Is it personal towards your character? So on and so forth. And then as you go through and you essentially open up a new plot line, it's going to go through there with that theme. So if it's action, or it's a tension scene, or it's a mystery scene, or it's a social scene, or it's a personal scene, you're going to roll your percentile dice, and it's going to give you a brief paragraph to give you an idea. And it's going to drop that idea into your head as to which way to take that plot line. And I have found myself coming back to this time and time again, and what a great resource it is. It's really, really a great one. Now, for Scarlet Heroes, because I used Scarlet Heroes for a long time, and I loved it for the simplicity, how fast it moved. But then I found myself going to one area of the book all the time, and I was just kind of like, okay, I want to sit down to play a solo RPG. I would have all these books sprawled out everywhere, going back to here, going back to there. You know, I should have bought stock in these things right here, which are your little page markers, your post-it page markers. And then I had seen something that really, I was like, wow, this is a great freaking idea. And it was this universal, right here, is this universal game master screen. And they had these inserts that were made for, really, it was just a generic 5e system, so you could use it for D&D or any other supported game out there that conformed to the 5e rules. And it was just very generic and would cover everything lightly. But I decided that's not what I wanted to do with it. And the fact that these sheets were easily removable and you could put your own stuff in place by just sliding them in, I decided to modify it my way. Now, what I did is I made a couple of panels for myself, and really looking at it, what did I use the most and what worked the best? And that's what I did with this. Now, this thing can be as much as 8 panels unto itself, and you can do what you will with it, really. Now, the one thing I did keep was the combat reference, which seemed to, at the time I thought this is a good idea because you can take a dry erase marker and you can write in there and keep an idea of what you want, basically essential stats. So you're not going back and forth through a monster manual or something like that. But yeah, I found myself after a while really not utilizing it all that much, and I just went back to my book stand that I use and open that up and plop it in there anyways for the stats I have to know. So I had moved on to other things that really helped speed up my solo RPG and gave me the resources I was looking for quickly right here. And I photocopied them, which is really, really not that hard. We can all do that. This is from Scarlet Heroes, and this pane covers, it has the oracle to answer your yes/no questions, and then of course, the thing that I don't like about the Scarlet Heroes is it's very narrow in scope, and so sometimes you'll get to situations in solo RPG to where you come up to a question that's not as simple as a yes/no. There's just too many different factors that go into that particular, whether it's a plot line, the antagonist, the protagonist, however you look at that, and you need something a little bit more dynamic, I'm gonna say. So that's where I put the Mythic Fate chart right here to answer if I need a probability question answered. It's right there, and just utilizing the chart the way that I like to use it by looking at the odds compared to the chaos rank. And I view the chaos rank, and this isn't the way Mythic puts it down, but I view the chaos rank as the current situation that my characters are in. Obviously, the lower the chaos rank, the more unlikely it's going to be compared to the higher the rank, the more likely it will be. And of course, I'm playing the game, I'm running the story in the background, we'll say, so to speak. So I'm going to know all of that up here and be able to input all those parameters. Now, last but not least, the one thing I did really enjoy about Scarlet Heroes that I did like and I kept was for the NPCs, which is right here. This pane, which is all the reactions. And then it gives you 3 very simple columns that go off your D100. And that is your memorable traits, the ruling temperament, and immediate desires, which may not sound like a lot, but let me explain something to you about solo RPG. Less is more. It really is. It's very, very easy with everything out there today to be able to get buried and overwhelmed with too many tables, too many I'm going to say randomized things that you could purchase now, to where you lose scope of the game and you're focused more on randomized charts than you are the game. So less is more. And I really, really do suggest, if you find something that's simple that works for you and you find that you're spending more time enjoying the game than you are chasing down different randomized tables, the better. Now, I know that may sound weird coming from me for the fact that I have lots of randomized tables, but I have found, since I put together this game screen for myself when I play RPGs, that I really don't need to utilize them. And if I do, they're very sparingly. So I will primarily use them for if my characters come into a town and they enter into an environment that the game has flown that way and I don't have anything prepared and I need to put something together fairly quickly to be able to answer those very important needed questions for the storyline, encounters, so on and so forth, I'll go back to the randomized tables and pull them out, and that's what they're there for. That's the whole purpose behind them. And you may still be able to find this. I got this on Amazon, and it was a while back when I seen it. And at the time when I picked it up, it was like $12. And I mean, it's basically, if you can think of the old loose leaves that we used to have, like your Trapper Keepers, stuff like that, how they had the plastic covering in the front where you could put your own pictures or whatever else you wanted to put in there with the plastic polyvinyl covering on it. That's pretty much all it is. That's really all it is. But it does come in handy when you're solo RPGing. You can have all them tables and of course, you're going to need a printer or some way to make a photocopy of the book, or if you just decide to cut the page out of the book, whatever you decide to do, you can put it in there. And the nice thing about this plastic is you can take a dry erase marker and you can circle, you can check, you can do what you need to do for your game. And then, of course, when you're done with it, you can just always clean it off and it's ready for the next session to go. So there's another little tip if you're new to solo RPG or you've been playing for a while. Maybe you just find yourself getting bogged down with too many options. That may be one thing that'll help you out and help kind of simplify the playing field, we'll say, so to speak. Okay. So the other thing I recently have decided to sit down and play with again, but this time in my own sandboxy way, not the pre-published modules, not the current printings, nothing like that, was in it because one of the things I was struggling with, and I don't know if you can notice behind me, I went through and I rearranged everything and got everything put back to the way that it needed to be. But when my condition hit, everything fell apart. And it wasn't until I had to answer the question to myself, I'd come in here and I'd sit down in the game room and I would try to game. I couldn't. And I couldn't figure it out. And then it wasn't until it dawned on me that this place was just such a disarray. Everything was just completely out of order, out of touch, couldn't find anything. And I was like, okay, so I got to take care of that first. So that's what I had done. I spent a day in here and cleared everything out, rearranged everything, put everything back together. And that's when I was putting back here on the top shelf, as you can see, all the D&D. So it starts with the advanced, goes through second, third. Never really got into 3.5. I have it though, and that's kind of buried in the back. Fourth, and then fifth. And that was the last shelf I had to arrange, and I got it done. It was towards the end of the night. I sat down and I started going through the player's handbook again and reading through it. And I had decided, I said, okay, because I have been away from gaming for so long that I was like, all right, Artichoke, this is stupid. You paid the money. You own the books. They're sitting on your shelf. Use them or get rid of them, one of the two. And the more I thought about it, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get these printings anymore. I mean, I'm sure you can. You might be able to find them on eBay, but as they become more and more overprinted, and as they just keep updating the call it for what it is, the woke agenda into it, which really not interested in it. I decided, let's go back, let's revisit it, and let's go back to the beginning. I decided it was time to get back to the beginning, back to the roots of where I started out and what I enjoyed about gaming. And before all this nonsense started, before my condition, before, you know, we had the great the great money grab of Wizards of the Coast, I'm gonna call it, of 2023, and just kind of like got that all out. And the last video I made, I said my piece on it. I got it out there, and I'm done. I'm over it. And anyways, had to go back to these bad boys. Had to go back to the loose leaves. And I have found one of the things that I slacked on was I traded these in for the loot, for, you know, these right here, which they work okay. One of the problems I find is I lose a lot of valuable information. I go back to play the RPG, and then I'm missing stuff. I'm missing notes because the notes have fallen out somewhere and they're gone. This one I've been very protective over. This is my second AD&D campaign that I've been playing for a while, and which is the reason why I've talked about this before in my channel, where if you play solitaire RPG, it's really good to get a binder, put everything in there along with all your notes, your maps, keep everything together with really good notes. So if you decide, you know what, I played this game for the last, we'll say, 4 gaming sessions, and I just want to play something else. So now you move on to something else, and now you decide whatever that other thing is, you really enjoy that, and you played it out. So now it's been, we'll say, 6, 7 gaming sessions, right? So if you're like me and you get maybe one day on the weekend to indulge in this, so now you're looking at a month to a month and a half down the road. Now you come back to it and you're trying to piece everything back together or remember where you were at. And then you find yourself in the frustration of you don't have all the information. So you're faced with one of two questions. Do you just pick up and keep going along with the story, but you're always going to have that basically missing point in the storyline that you really can't account for, and it's going to make the game feel kind of clunky. It's not going to really help a whole lot with future game sessions, because it's always going to be in the back of your mind. Or do you just scrap it all, start over with fresh characters, and go back through it again? Well, I got lazy. I kind of just started using these things because they were cheap, and for a while there I was doing reviews and other things, and I started these games, and I just have a massive amount of games that I have started. I have the notes, I have everything I need, and I ran out of room to put loose leaf binders. So I got one loose leaf binder, and I just put all these different games in here and would go back to them when I needed them. And then I found myself in that same old boat again, try to go back to it, and I'm missing vital information. So this time I decided I need to get back to my roots. I need to get back to where I started and go back to the loose leaf binder. I got the hole punch, I got the whole 9 yards, and put everything actually into a ring binder that's not going to fall out, that I can keep in there and run through that. Now, 5e, let's get into 5e, because there's some things I have an issue with 5e. That is the fact that characters can tend to be a little overpowered from the get-go. But one thing I can say, looking at the monster manual, is the monster manual really does balance that out with the encounters, because even though the characters start out a little more overpowered than what I have become accustomed to with older editions of D&D, so have the encounters. To the point, as a matter of fact, I was sitting down playing through my sandboxy, and I have to say, the one thing I did like about, I do like about 5e, when they released 5e, was the fact that it catered to the way that I always enjoyed to play D&D, where I would weigh more heavily on my attributes to roll, answer them questions. Like, my characters are out in the wilderness. One of them is taking first watch while the others rest at the camp, and he's scanning the horizon to see anything. Does he see anything? Okay, so it's going to bring you back to 2 questions. Is that an intelligence? No, intelligence would be more what he could really comprehend, remember, and pull up from memory and be able to apply. Or is it wisdom? Is it he's actually, he's got enough experience underneath his belt that he knows where he should be looking. He knows where he should be scanning and where precautions should be taken. And when he hears a certain sound, he knows this is a natural animal compared to this is unnatural and it should be investigated. So it would fall more towards wisdom. So then I would roll against the wisdom. And I've always done that with my solo RPG and playing my RPGs. So that aspect of it, I do like. And getting back into it, actually sitting down, making my own sandbox creation. And I can suggest one excellent book for this. And, oh, I can see it. I'm going to grab this real quick and show you. If you're a solitaire player, this book is like gold. And it's really one, if you're a solitaire RPG player, I really, really recommend. You may want to look into adding it to your library. That book I'm talking about, of course, is right here, The Tome of Adventure Design. The Tome of Adventure Design is not a randomized, it has randomized tables in it, but it is not set up like you have come accustomed to maybe seeing other products out there that advertise just a randomized table that the DM and or solitaire player like us can utilize. This really helps you come up with great adventure ideas, story hooks, protagonist, antagonist, how the enemy is deciding to plot against you and what resources they're going to use to do that. All those things when I had started on my channel and I was talking about, and I will re-emphasize, is if you play solitaire RPG, you're going to want to have two different opposing forces in your storyline. You're going to want to have a protagonist. The protagonist is going to be the one that's going to help your characters. They're going to give your characters the necessary tools they need to perhaps make the journey. They're going to give them the tools maybe, or help them to get to the area, whether it be by information, magic, travel, whatever, to obtain them tools to reach that objective. And then of course on the other end of the spectrum, you want the antagonist. The antagonist is that person in, I say person, but it doesn't always have to be a person. It could be a person, place, and or thing. It could be an artifact. Maybe, heck, it's fantasy. It could be anything you want to put in as the antagonist. But the antagonist is there to be the constant driving force behind the storyline. So when your characters begin to drift off course, like can happen in RPGs, right? It starts out, you're going to, we'll say, we'll use the classic fantasy trope, right? You're going to slay the dragon and go and save the princess, we'll say, right? Classic fairy tale style. But then you find you go off to slay the dragon, and then what winds up happening is the wheel falls off the wagon, which at that point you run into another encounter over here, which leads to this area over here, which unsuspectingly take you to here, and then a few game sessions later, you're way out in the fields, and you have no idea how you got here. That's where the antagonist comes in. The antagonist is there to be able to impose that story narrative back into your solitaire RPG, to pull you back into an alignment. This is the whole purpose why your character started this quest to begin with. And this is the linear line you're trying to follow to reach the end of the game session, where the Tome of Adventure Design is going to really help you with that. It's going to really outline that, and with a few dice rolls and sitting down with a pad of paper and or computer, or if you want to use the device to type it out, you're going to be able to get a very simple yet comprehensive idea for a story, for different plot lines, and how to map those out, and how to put it into a very, very cool sandboxy type of RPG that you can play for as many sessions as you would like. Now, how many, I think here's a question that I've been asked several times, and people have asked me, A, how do you know when to level up your characters? And B, how many game sessions should your RPG last? Well, those two are very, very good questions. Leveling. The way I've always done it with solitaire RPG. So if I'm playing a game session, let's say it's running kind of slow, haven't ran into too many encounters, maybe it's the way the tables are falling as I'm rolling the dice, you're just running into settlement after settlement. There's not a whole lot going on. You're talking to a lot of merchants. You might have a city encounter here and there. Okay, I'm going to say you can run about 4, maybe 5 of them game sessions, and then it's time to level up the character. If you're playing a game setting to where it's very battle heavy, every single game session is just a grinder. You're going through there and your characters are slaying everything in sight, and or your characters are just getting beat to a pulp every game session. then it's going to be at that point, you might want to change it to every 3 game sessions to where you're leveling. There's reasons I do this. The first main reason is so you're not in this long, drug out grind fest. This is where a lot of people will get frustrated and they quit. They quit because they see I have been playing this many sessions and I have yet to advance my character because this number over here represents I have not, killed enough of these things to justify this level change. Okay, when you play solitaire, you're gonna have to bend some of the rules a little bit to be able to make those adjustments for you. And that's the thing about an RPG. All RPGs say that if you go into the introduction and you read the fluff, the one thing it says in there, if there's any rules in here you do not agree with, you can either change them or house rule them to adapt to the story. But story always trumps over rules. Always. It's about a good story. It's not about according to the main core rule book in paragraph 3, it clearly states. No, it's not about that. It's story trumps rules every time. So when it comes to leveling the characters, every 3 sessions, if you're finding yourself getting bogged down, you're finding, the payoff's not coming, try it every 3 sessions, or maybe 2 sessions if you want to speed things up a little bit quicker and leveling them. But you have to remember, you got to keep game balance in there. You don't want to level up your characters too quick to your characters go up here and your encounters are down here, because then the opposite's going to happen. You're going to have grossly overpowered characters with a little bit of a challenge, and then after a while that is going to become far more boring because you're not going to have a challenge. So you want to make sure you balance those things out, particularly if you're running a sandbox and you have designed it with a lot of low level encounters and you want to level up your characters. That's okay. You just have to remember, you have to increase the amount of encounters to be able to equal that challenge out and keep it engaging and fun. And every time you come back to the table, that's just going to intrigue you a little bit more to want to push further into the storyline and look forward to leveling up your character. So that covers leveling. Game sessions. How many game sessions should an adventure last? Or should a sandbox last? Well, here's the thing about that when you solitaire. If you, reason why I suggest loose leaves, hole punching everything, keeping everything organized and not losing stuff. After a while, any game, I don't care what it is. I don't care if you're playing Forbidden Lands, One Ring, D&D, Pathfinder, it does not matter. I don't care. You're going to become, I'll say, what's a good way of putting this? It's going to feel stale after a while, I should say. And you're going to want to move on to something else. You're going to want to have something else that really captures your imagination because you've been focused on this one area for so long that you're ready for something new. So to answer that question, how long should a game session go? Well, if you find that you're no longer enjoying it like you were, maybe you've sat down, this adventure has grinded on, you're not really getting any resolution, well, 1 or 2 things to try. 1, you can try adding more challenging encounters into it to see if that helps you. 2, don't forget about intersecting plot lines. You want to have NPCs and intersecting plot lines so that way it opens up the story more and makes it more interesting. Example, let's say you go to a temple to be able to talk to this cleric to give you information about the current quest you're on, because you're in possession of this artifact. But when in fact, when you get there, you find out that that cleric has gone missing and has been missing for, we'll say, several weeks, and nobody can find them. But then you see subtle clues that your character may remember about, we'll say, a thieves guild. It doesn't have to be a thieves guild. We'll say an assassin, a well-known assassin that has operated in this area, and you're seeing subtle signs that are throwing red lights up that, this looks like this is the work of the same assassin. Is the assassin at the root cause of why this cleric is missing? And if he is, why is that? How did that happen? And then that's where your intersecting plot lines come in, because now you're bringing in this NPC of this assassin, and it's allowing you to take the story into a different direction. So if your gaming sessions are feeling rather stale, they feel like they're kind of bogging down and maybe not as fun as they were, try your intersecting plot lines. If that doesn't help, maybe it's time to move on to a different game. Maybe it's time to put everything in your loose leaf, put it on the shelf for a little bit, move on to something else, and then when you get the urge to play that game again, pull it down, review your notes, jump back into it. So I'm hoping the video answered some questions, covered my absence, what was going on with that. Huge shout out to the solo RPG guy, Don. Hope you're doing great out there, my friend. And a couple of things that I have, cooking in the fire right now, and I'm getting back into the swing of things, and I decided, of all things, that it was time maybe to get a more clear perspective on what I own, and remembering why I purchased it in the first place and my intent for it, versus over the bad publicity that these systems have brought on themselves for cash grabs. And I have to say, I'll probably get comments from people about how they hated 4th edition and how 4th edition is so horrible. And you know what? That's fair enough. I'm not looking at that edition as a RPG system that I would play, let's say, my Ravenloft Realm of Terror. I'm going to approach that a lot differently with the books I'm using, the system I'm using, and everything else, because that's the way that system was made to be played. I'm looking at it as, man, this is going to make a badass miniature skirmish game, because I can really, really go through and really tweak things the way I want them for this to go. And I already have these sets, along with the dungeon tiles and other things that can be utilized and thrown right into that would just meld right together. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If you're I know when it comes to 4th, it's just like this love-hate relationship. It's just, man, people either love it or they hate it. I think I'm in the minority, the fact that I'm like at the in-between, that I'm like, well, I really don't want to utilize it as for an RPG, but I see this, what can be used for what I enjoy. So, all right, my friends, as always, I hope the video was informative. I hope you guys liked it. If you made it all the way to the end, click the like button, let me know. And if you're new here, you just stopped in, just found my channel, please don't forget to click subscribe, followed by the bell icon. When I upload, you'll get a video. Of course you're gonna get. Oh, let me start over. You will get a notification, so you will know when I upload a video. So, all right, my friends. With that being said, hoping to get more time, and as winter draws closer near and things begin to slow down, that can happen. And with me on the men's and feeling a hell of a lot better than I have in a long time. Yeah, I hope to get more videos out, more content out, talk about more good gaming stuff rather than just, you know, try to jump at when I feel the inspiration, but more or less give you some more decisive content to be able to watch. All right, my friends, with that being said, those are my thoughts and not yours. And this is Artichoke Dick signing off.